You're listening to the Flex Success Podcast, where we teach you how to be less shit.
I'm your co-host Lizzie, and this is Dean. We'll be covering all topics relating to health, fitness, and bodybuilding.
Join us as we use our in the trenches experience and up-to-date science to provide you with information that you can actually use.
If you like what we do, be sure to give us a like, follow, share, and tag us on social media.
We are back yet again, another Flex Success podcast, back with yours truly and Mr. Flex Coach George. My man, how are you?
I'm very good, mate. Yourself?
Mate, I'm well. This is kind of a weird one. I'm sitting in Valencia, and you, as our UK resident, is now sitting in Australia, my home country. I was going to say it's almost like roles reversed, except for the fact that I've now shifted countries anyway. But, mate, how is the land down under?
Mate, the minute I stepped off the plane, I was sweating buckets. It took me long to acclimatise to this weather, man. And literally, I've come down to Sydney, and it's like being back at home. It's pissing with rain. Yeah. Just can't win.
Well, the rain there does come down much harder. I don't know if you've actually experienced it yet, but it's not like, you know, if it rains in the UK, you can kind of walk around and you'll get a little bit wet most of the time, but not really that wet. But when it rains in Australia, you're like, okay, I need cover.
Yeah. That was me when I come at the airport just then at Sydney. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. So you're in Sydney now, but you, for those that are at home listening, George actually flew into Australia and went to the Queensland IFBB show. So
yeah, I was at Brisbane show this weekend. It was a fucking awesome day out for the flex athlete. It was such a nice environment, sitting with all the huddle of like just flex shirts everywhere. Just like 10 of us, 10 man deep, sat in the backstage area. It was really fucking awesome. It was nice to see the quality of shows as well in Oz, which it was interesting talking to the other competitors and coaches behind the scenes back show that had their own opinions of some of the show runnings and stuff. But in comparison to UK, man, I think the level I've seen is far superior in what they put in to the actual venues, size of the venue, money flooded into the athletes, space for the athletes. I know it was a little bit behind on the day, but that to me is normal anyway. So
yeah, and I mean, you picked a doozy. It was like 400 entrants, I think, like 200 competitors and like 400 entrants. So yeah, from memory, you know, as you know, I was sitting here at like 2 and 3 and 4 a.m. in the morning in Valencia, chatting to my guys while they're there at the show, and it was supposed to be men's done by say 1:30, but they were really done at 3:30. So it was just a monster of a show. You picked an absolute doozy.
Yeah, but see, if that was in the UK, that would have been 5-6 hours late, not 2 hours late.
Yeah, yeah. And then just for those again, you actually flew in to go to the Australian shows, right?
Yeah. The only reason why I've come out here is literally just to tour around the shows for the IFBB this season, just wherever our flex athletes are.
Yeah. So first impressions were that it was obviously a big show. Anything else come about that surprised you? Or?
I've spoken about the standard of Oz bodybuilding before from what I've seen in comparison to other places around the world. And I'd probably still lean on it being because of the limited amount of shows, but the large pool of athletes, the quality and the cream always does rise to the top. So it always looks like across most categories, the kind of like first call out or, you know, a top 5 are always very good, very close standard most of the time. But again, I think just the population, mass number and limitation of shows is what kind of refines that, I guess. But I've even said to a few of my guys, it'd be cool to see them come across abroad and compete to see where Oz standard sits in the rest of the world. And I think it might shock a few people.
Well, I mean, not to toot my own horn, George, but I did come across to the UK and win my category. No, I mean, it's been good for me even just to hear you say that, because I've found it to be similar. Not even actually, to be perfectly honest, man, not even just in bodybuilding, but when I played football, soccer back in the day, and I went to the UK, I was like, oh, the quality of guys that I compete with is exceptionally good. But from a football standards, at least, you know, the grassroots, the support, the systems in play, the amount of money in football in the UK just allows, like, let's just say, you know, a 6 out of 10 player to become an 8 out of 10 player, whereas our 8 out of 10 players just never ever go further and beyond that because they just don't have the support. So, yeah, to toot a straight horn, man, I think we do all right from an athletic perspective, and the bodybuilding shows are definitely good. And like you said, because there's just fewer shows, the opportunity for like our top tier guys to compete against each other means that they all have to compete against each other. You know, like this nationals coming up, man, it's going to be a fucking belter this year.
I think this is, in comparison to the rest of the world, the amount of pro cards given out in Australia compared to everyone else is very, very little. And there's just such a big pool of athletes. I do think that's a bit of a negative on Australia's front. If they maybe gave a bit more opportunity, like the rest of the world did, that we'd probably see more Australian athletes making it into the pro shows, making it into the Olympia in the future. But yeah, with one, I hip a bit hypocritical because my opinion does stay that how Oz do things is how it should be done. Like we shouldn't be giving out pro cards willy-nilly, but for Oz, it would be better if they did go with the rest of the world's view and start handing them out. There's definitely some very good on them stages.
Yeah, but it's a sliding scale too, though, right? It's not like we have to go from giving out only 2 to an open men's bodybuilder a year to 15. I would love to see Australia do like a season A, a season B, and a season C, because I think that like keeps the quality really high, and it means that like an average Joe isn't really given the opportunity to get a pro card just by default of nobody showing up, like I have seen in some of the European shows. But it would also mean that those that do quite well, that are like near the top in Australia, they could take a competitive season from a regionals and then jump into an overseas without having to time it really, really well. Because like right now, you've got guys, if they can't get a show in after April, they're then delayed to be in shape again until October. So we did like an April and then a July and then like a September, October. That would be sick because we could come in, do regional shows and then shoot off and go do some international shows, dip your toe in the water, see how you fare, have a holiday, and then it would be a pretty cool little setup. But I'm not the controller of people's futures with that, unfortunately.
It'd be a lot easier for bodybuilding if it was that way, eh? It's a shame because I was having this conversation with a couple of my first timers from this season. Like, it's not. I always, when I think about, just go and do nationals for Oz, I always think about it like when I'm in the UK, like, just go and do the pro qualifier. It's only like 2-hour drive away. It is like traveling and competing internationally for them when they come from state to state, just because of the distance they have to travel and how much it costs and everything else that goes into it. So I think some better wide, just a better forecast of venues across the country is something that also would be worth looking into, just so athletes didn't have to travel so far as well. More feasible for.
Yeah, it is tough because there's and especially for the Perth crew, the east coast of Australia have got it pretty lucky. Like, we're talking like 2 and 3 hour transfers. It's like that, but Perth across. And I think that's typically why they do give the Perth boys a little bit longer time as well, so that they can, take some time to come over if they want to. But what was it for Tom? I think Tom Stanley, who came, second in his category over in Perth, has got like 4.5 to 5 weeks between shows because they need to get the other state ones done so they can always then get into it. But and then the problem is, man, some of them actually don't even end up doing their state show. They'll just skip their state show and then roll into the last available state show on the East Coast and stay for the entire week and then go do that. So then you have this one really watered down show in preference for timing. So it is tough, but what do you do?
Yeah.
But
exactly that.
Before we get into the body, we'll talk about the results, obviously, and recap a bit of that and maybe discuss, because you had Ryan in that show as well, we could discuss maybe some variability in peak weeks and whatnot, because I certainly had a couple of different ones this year. But what's the first impressions of Australia so far too? You landed in Brisbane and stayed on the Gold Coast, or?
I know there's so many memes about Australian wildlife now. Like, Australia, them typical bullshit memes. You see like some alien on the background picture. Like, there's a bird that walks around most of the time but has poisonous tips in its wings and just will randomly come and attack you if you get too close. Like, what bird needs poisonous tips? We got pigeons in the UK. That's about it, and they smell. They're rhino beetle. One of them was in the gym at Shane's the other day, and he picked it up and it's like hissing at him, like it was full blown like a cat, like it was so noisy. And then there was flying bats. I was literally outside having a vape, and this fucking giant flying bat thing that looked like it was like a puppy with wings just come flying past my head. Absolutely shit me up, man. Shit me up. It's from start to finish. Got here, it's just been one like tippy toe at a time.
Always wearing shoes. Crocs aren't suitable in Australia.
Crocs on a walk. I come back and my legs were bit to pieces with ant bites. Amateur mistake.
You're lucky you didn't get any leeches or any of that. So the bird with I'm gonna know what bird this is, but I probably don't even know that it even has poisonous wings.
It's got like almost similar to like seagull legs, quite long and pointy, similar to a seagull body, white and black.
Not a plover.
Black head. Might be a plover. That rings a bell. I think it began with a P. Right.
Plovers are notorious for swooping Australians, and they get a little bit closer than what magpies do. And then the problem with it, so a magpie will swoop you, but it has its nest up in the tree, so you can kind of see where they're at. A plover nests its fucking things on like flat ground. So if you're in like an open space, all of a sudden you just start getting bomb dived by plovers, and they make a really noticeable noise, and you're just like, oh no, I'm done.
Yeah. But yeah, poisonous birds, as if that's a real thing.
Yeah, apparently so, mate. Any big spiders? No snakes?
I knew you was going to ask that. Unfortunately, I've not seen a single spider since I've been here.
Right. See? No, this is good, mate, because so not that he would ever listen to this, but Jared Feather he is denied going to Australia as a part of the RP crew before to give an education series in fear of the animals that exist there. He's like, I'm not having it. Like, I could die.
Don't blame him. I do not blame him. Upon being here, I generally, touch wood, have not seen this. Oh no, I'm going to say this. I'm going to wake up. There's going to be a huntsman above my head or something now. But yeah, I haven't seen a single one. And that is the one fear that I actually truly have.
Well, I mean, if you would have ever have seen a spider or a collection thereof, it would have been at Shane's place, because, and I think he's on the back of a reserve or whatever it is. He's got like a bit of bush around him. Like that's certainly a place where you would have typically seen spiders. I'm surprised they weren't in the gym.
Didn't see anything. Nothing in there.
He must be running a tight ship with regards to insect control there, because
Yeah.
daddy longlegs are pretty much typically everywhere. You don't actually see huntsmen and stuff that frequently. So
yeah, that's all right. Well, my fear was I was going to come over in spider season and they was going to be hanging across the top of the walkway. Yeah.
I don't know if we have one of those seasons. I think they just exist forever. It's gold. Any other first impressions thus far? Obviously, it's hot comparative to where you were, but not too much different, I wouldn't imagine.
I wouldn't want to live too far out from a city centre if I moved here. Very big open space, a lot of driving and commuting to get to different places, or even just go and get food and stuff. It's always a bit of a drive away. It's not very easy accessible.
Oh, what about supermarkets, mate? Have you been into Woolworths or Coles?
Been into Coles or Woolworths yet?
Haven't you?
I generally haven't yet. No, I was really lucky. Shane was literally Shane and his wife were literally prepping meals and doing stuff, so I literally had it all there on hand.
That's amazing. That is one thing that I actually thoroughly enjoy in every country that I go to, is just wandering the aisles of the supermarkets, like some little kid in the candy store on Christmas morning. Like, oh, what do you have? For example, the one that's close to us currently now in Valencia, this is the only available sugar-free Monster that they have.
But now, where do you stand on the flavor?
Well, I expected it to be Red Bull because all of the originals were Red Bull, right? And it's kind of Red Bully, but maybe a bit sweeter and a little bit less tang. It's actually pretty nice.
I like it. The OG original sugar-free one's one of my favourite ones.
Yeah,
Going to the market, I take it back. I went into a 7-Eleven. I know it's more of a like American Aussie kind of thing, not just an Aussie predominant. But that let me down massively. Everyone in the UK has an idea of a 7-Eleven being this magical supermarket that's full of loads of treats and shit. It was dead.
7-Eleven in Australia is legitimately a shitty convenience store. It is made for just chocolates and lollies, and usually they have like a tiny little bit of Krispy Kreme. Then they're terrible. In Japan, however, the greatest convenience store you'll ever go to.
Nah, that's where the difference is.
In Japan, man, you have a cold drink section and a hot drink section that sit parallel to each other with no border, except for the fact that whatever backs them must be warming and cooling them. So you can literally go one can hot coffee, second can cold coffee. And you don't know until you kind of put your hand in there and you go, oh, this is the warm section, There's obviously colors and stuff.
There's no crossover, but surely the ones that are close to each other will get some kind of heat crossover.
They're cold and they're hot. It's, and you can get like onigiri, you can get sushi, you can get ramen, you can get, there's a bain marie there with like soups in it. You can work from there. They have desks. You can print work from there. They have printers. You name it, man. 7-Eleven's got it all. The hilarious thing though is that I used to laugh is because whenever as a bodybuilder, there's never a time where you're not like protein, carb, fat. This is kind of like what I'm trying to hit in this somewhat of this meal, And I'd be like, all right, what's an easy carbohydrate? Cereal. And I could never find cereal in Japan in these 7-Elevens until I went to the confectionery aisle. And that's what they classified it as in Japan. And I'm like, probably a fair representation of what this food actually is.
Yeah. loads of sugar, especially the American stuff.
Yeah, man. So, but mate, podcast today, just to sort of do a bit of a recap on the weekend. We had like you said, a pretty incredible week as a group of athletes with Flex. We had 7 athletes, 7 podiums. Pretty fucking cool.
It was awesome to see Matty stood next to Josh. Finally,
Yeah,
Behind
yeah.
that was really cool. Every single person in the crowd was behind that battle on the day. That was sick. It was such a good environment in the venue, man.
Yeah, on the live, it got real loud when Maddie came. I mean, it always does with the supers because Tony also hypes it up. Actually, how did you find Tony as an MC?
He was decent, man. He threw a couple of jokes in here and there. It wasn't too. He didn't do too much talking. I feel like he kind of got the right amount on the day of jumping in, having a sly comment here or there, and not. If it was pretty, what's the word? Reserved, I'd say.
Right. Did he make any comments about Queensland being bogan pot smokers?
Not that I heard.
Mate, this might be used for. Usually, he's from Melbourne. Melbourne think that they're a little bit more superior to Brisbane, as do Sydney, right? And then Sydney and Melbourne kind of like butt heads as to who's better. And almost every show I've ever been to with Tony, there's something like, now guys, it's probably because I run behind. It's usually like, now guys, we're going to take a break at 1:30. Now you Queensland bogans, that doesn't mean you can go out and smoke weed and come back late. You know, we need you back here at 2:00. And I'm always like, this has to be an Australian thing to like really drop the professionalism for a moment of time and just abuse the people that you're trying to, entertain. But it's always done in the nicest way possible.
There was a couple of moments where he ripped a few people on stage. I'm assuming he'll a bit better than just a random guy just competing.
Probably not with Tony, to be honest. He's a bit like that. He just shoots from the hip, mate. You know?
Wait, make everyone laugh.
Like I've even heard him say things like, "Look, now guys, you've done all right here, but you need to come back in better. You come back in better shape next week, and then you'll do a lot better." We're like, "Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it."
Mate, it's odd. I don't need to speak to the judges now.
Yeah. So let's just recap the results real quickly. We had Ryan did 2 categories or 3.
2 categories. So you got top call out in the first in novice bodybuilding, and then second in the light heavies.
Yeah, which I think Josh won that novice, didn't he? So another super heavyweight.
Yeah, that novice funny novice class, man. Seeing Josh and a couple of very big boys in it.
And novice is tough, man, because you come up against definitely not an amateur. Well, obviously an amateur competitor, but not an amateur trainer or like a beginner trainer. It's a tough category. I'm always a little bit like hesitant with novice. I'm kind of like, it's nice because you could kind of stand next to some really cool dudes, but it's also like there's no parameters around like consistency of it. You could be up against a 110 kilo guy, which in this instance, I don't know how much Josh weighed. He's obviously over 102, but and then you had Ryan in the under 80s. So like, you've got a dude who's like 100.
70, 78, 79 around there.
Yeah. But then Ryan came back into the under 80s and took out second against like a well-seasoned dude by the looks of it too.
Yeah. He was he won the Masters. The guy beat Ryan in the under 80s. Yeah, I don't want to pass too much judgment on that one.
Man, the feedback that I saw was really good of Ryan, and like, to be honest, man, I was lucky enough to coach Ryan quite a few years ago, and he's an absolute workaholic in regards to his capacity just to get shit done. He's one of those true bodybuilders that just says, "No worries, mate."
I know it's not a game of who's got the most drama and adversity on prep, but coming out the back of his wife's surgery, newborn in the house, job, he didn't miss a beat, man, and I pushed him very hard, and I still he's still not moaning, man. And anything I say yes, got to get this done. How high, how fast, how far? Yes, no. How many times you want it done? He's on point every single time. It was nice to get the feedback, the condition, like the things that we needed to improve the placing are things that realistically me and Ryan both know are off-season jobs. Like we need to bring up more balance through the lower body, change that disparity between the upper lower, and address a little bit of that gyno in the off-season. But they're all things that we can't do national. So my plan is just to bring something absolutely disgusting in regards to conditions, so they can't really ignore him. That's my aim. That's all we can do in the time frame.
Yeah. I'm also of the opinion, like, you can't grow tissue in the next 3 weeks, right? So then it's always like, all right, well, what is another box that I can tick where I can just be undeniable in regards to saying I achieved X? And the one thing that will never, ever, ever, ever not be credited is condition. So it's like if someone said to you, "Holy fuck, you were peeled. Once you get bigger, you'll be good." I'm like, yeah, I'm down with that. But there's nothing worse than being like, "Oh, you need to be a little bit leaner and a bit bigger." Like, God damn it, I missed both.
Yeah, but them things could have definitely been null and avoided. The other thing's a time question.
Yeah. So, but man, he absolutely blew his previous showing out of the water. So, compliments to the chef, I will say, in regards to your job there, man. And it was like just a really, really nice experience for me just to watch that sort of prevail over the weeks, just going, oh damn, Ryan's getting peeled. And he has some really cool, like wacky insertions like with his delts and into his arms, and his back is good. And I'm just like, fuck, this is a cool look. Like, so props to you both.
Is how thick his erectors are. After he left you and did the powerlifting in his kind of like off season before coming back to me, however much deadlift he was doing, whatever it's done has blown his erectors to pieces. They hang further out than the glutes at the top of the glute max insert. They come out like he almost looks like the lats run underneath them and the erectors are over the top. It's stupid.
Yeah. No, that was a really, really successful prep. So I'm keen to see this next 3 weeks. I'm sure he'll be in the hole to a certain degree again, and just doing what Ryan does best.
Already heaps leaner. It literally took 2 days. I was like, oh shit, fucking yep, that's what we like to see.
So then what's the plan then? So if you get someone like that who's obviously like very lean already, needs some more size, and there's still got probably a little bit of room left in that weight cap, even from a loading perspective. What's the plan for you here with regards to food and outputs?
So coming off the back of peak week, I think, well, I mean, the difference in trial peak to this peak was phenomenal. We took another 800 gram of carbs, and on the day was not really fully loaded. We was having a fun game, keeping him topped up across the day, trying to keep GI in check. So at the back of this one, I knew realistically with how hard how different the peak week had been, how much harder it was to load him. Realistically, was probably still leveraging on the average by the end of it in a deficit, which would have left him with a bit of compositional improvement. Which 2 days straight after peak, he's not lost a shit ton of body fat in 2 days. We're just seeing that kind of backlash of the reward from peak week swinging the variables. Plan now is just to keep fatigue as low as possible, move back into the deficit appropriately, not too harsh, not too stupid that we're going to end up battling it at the other end of it, because we've done most of that work now. So no additional expenditure or cardio, steps kept consistent and stabilized, deficit created with food, and then the reintroduction of some clenbuterol in the meantime. But that's literally it. I think 500 total calorie deficit, just very light, very benign from where he is.
Yeah. So is he on less or more food now pre-peak week?
By about 100 calories up. So it's pretty much consistent.
Cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah, just a little slight escalation up. And then you think now it's just going to be a matter of managing it every week.
There is also a difference in macronutrient setup. Digging into we was closer to a PSMF. Coming at the back here now, he's got quite a moderate split between protein, carbs, and fats.
Oh, mate, that would be so nice for him to eat comparatively.
Yeah, a lot. The body's responding so much better to it as well.
Yeah. Plus, you got the added advantage. Obviously, the stress of show is gone now, so now it's fun. And man, it's even greater for someone like him who's in a position where it's like condition was good, size is the thing you need. Like he's like, all right, cool, I can't fix that now, so let's just enjoy this the next few weeks and just get peeled.
No, it's nice to have that honest reflection from him, me and him communicating and both being on the same page. So it's not like he's in the down and in the dumps or knocked back from places and all the result. He's come back with it exactly lit and keen to fucking get gnarly ass glutes.
Yeah, man. That'll be cool. So is he going to do under 80s then, just at nationals?
Yeah, just under 80s. And yeah, no, they don't have first timers would be done, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they get rid of first timers and they keep novice.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do novice and under 80s then.
Yeah, nice. Other guys that day, we had Josh Phillips crossover from the WBFF. He just recently become second in the WBFF universe. I think it was the universe. I always get them mixed up as to what they call things these days. But he's shifted over and he's taken on men's physique. I'm going to publicly say this now, so if he does listen, everybody else does. I'd really love to see him do classic. I hate seeing fucking sick legs in shorts. I'm very happy now that the IFBB are shifting the shorts up 2 inches if they're now like officially 2 inches above the knee, because you do get to see a bit of quad. And his legs look unreal on stage for a men's physique guy. Oh, not even for a men's physique guy. I didn't mean that offensively, but rather they just looked awesome and on a men's physique guy. So he ended up taking home second in the Open. So he just went straight into the Open, skipped the novice first timers, all that, just went straight in. And feedback for him was pretty much just to continue to work on presentation, because he realistically only posed men's physique for like 2 weeks. So just, not super comfortable.
There's a couple of back shots between him and first place. And granted, I'd still lean towards Josh being the better overall package and better athlete, but there was a couple of times with his posing where he did get overshadowed.
Yeah, so that's the goal for us for him. It's just refine that, get comfortable. continue to get this that tiny bit crispier. We don't have to do anything silly with him either, man, because he's pretty much there. And he's a pretty fast responder with regards to the deficit too. So he actually came in at a relatively similar weight to what he did for WBFF, and that was shit, man. I think we had 5 weeks, and we really only decided to do the IFBB show at around about 3 weeks out. So he had, a week and a half of kind of just eating freely to a certain degree in America and training around and enjoying himself. Put back on about 4 or 5 kilos, and we pulled that back off again in the last 3 weeks. So it's going to be an interesting 3 weeks for him. I'm super keen to see him hopefully it'd be absolutely sick for him to shift over and take a pro carb straight away. That would be a real treat. We had George and Ryan both competed in the under 90s, which was really cool.
Yep.
Both, again, great feedback. George, we knew, was coming in just a little bit less sharp than what he was the last show, but he was significantly larger. And he'll come in still significantly bigger now. So his goal for us in the next show is he came second in the under 90s and Ryan came third, respectively. George is just going to be pushing down to the deficit again, just getting that bit sharper, probably come in 1 or 2 kilos lighter. But once he's sharp, man, that rear double bi and rear lat spread of his is undeniable because it's just so fucking pretty.
Even his rear relaxed shocked me when I saw that on stage. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty posterior chain.
Yeah, and he composed, man. His posing routine was sick. I think for him too was like one of those things where like he hadn't really ever. He's just come out of juniors essentially, like not long ago. The last show he did juniors and under 90s, and he did under 90s at the nationals and took a top 5. I can't remember where he actually ended up. And but he was on the lighter side of 83 kilos. It was we had him at about 88 there on the weekend, and he really held his own from a size perspective. So for a young dude, man, this time I think it was maybe, I don't know if he doesn't really get nervous, George, but there was maybe a little bit of nerves there just jumping into the open straight away, and it's just a little bit uncertain. And usually has like a lot of charisma and like he really just fucking loves being on stage. Like he's a bit of a performer, so. I think we'll see that return now. He's sort of got that fire lit again and knows he's within striking distance. So that'll be really cool. Ryan, we're actually gonna at this stage, unless he absolutely just does not look better pulling down, we're probably going to suck him down into the under 80s because I think in the under 80s the size that he will have with the detail that he'll have by the time we get him there will just be undeniable. And credit to Ryan, he's always just, to me, he's like your Ryan actually. Funnily enough, he's just a yes boss kind of guy. And then who else? We had Matty Gall do exceptionally well in the although Tony kept calling him Matt Gory. Matt Gall, he won his novice classic, and then he jumped into the opens and won his class in that, which was fucking cool. Maybe have to say the best arms on the day. I'm going to call it. Matty Gall's arms are arms that I wish that I had.
I think that's a fair.
Say again?
Fair statement.
Oh man, that classic pose. I don't even know what it's called. You know, it's called the one, the old school. What's it got a name? Like the crane? Is it the crane?
The arms
yeah.
off. Yeah, I call it the Arnold one because that's what he always used to do. But yeah, maybe the crane.
I call it the Arnold one too. That pose, man, on him just looks mad. He hits a bit different to what the traditional is, but it just looks mad. So his is just going to be refinement of posing too, I think, man, to be perfectly honest. Coming a little bit sharper. We were a little bit behind on Matty for whatever reason, and we pushed him hard the last few weeks. So his was a very different peak week approach to what I would typically take, in that it was really just a backload. It was a fairly significant backload, tidy up for one day, get in on show day and see how you fare, and then determine the approach thereafter for nationals. And thus far, the feedback has just basically been, he looks sick, coming a bit sharper through posterior chain, and you're good to go. So I'm like, cool, that's a time game. We've got that covered. And who else we had? We obviously had Jaden then in the under 102s, which was a really cool win for him. He's been pushing into that sort of category now for like the last few years, and often for one reason or another, I'm not sure with Jaden, he always gets left a little bit on the side, but he's one of those bodybuilders, man, that compares very well when given the chance. But if not given the chance, can kind of just get lost in the group. And they brought him into the middle this time, and that's when I think it was just like one of those things where like, he's actually very good, you know, because he's kind of like that granular art, like sort of like nasty look.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. that was actually one really interesting thing for me watching. A client of mine, Taylor Crabtree, he prepped a young fella, Morgan, I believe his name is. He did classic.
Yeah.
He was, for anyone that was watching there, they might think like, why do people miss out on certain shows? Like, why wasn't this person looked at? Sometimes it's just who you first get stood next to that gives you the opportunity to either not be seen or to be pushed to the side. We saw this in the Olympia with Samson and Rami. Everyone sees Rami as this monster. And Samson at the time of that Olympia was certainly somewhat of a talk of the town, but definitely probably wasn't a talk for the top 5 to top 10 sort of range. But by default of coming out next to each other, Samson got the opportunity to stand next to the best, which he maybe never would have gotten the opportunity to do so in the comparisons. And everyone went, oh shit, and not to liken Morgan to Samson or anything, but when he came out for his initial category, it may have been a first timers or a novice or something like that. He kind of got just put next to someone that, for whatever reason, didn't really do him any service. And the guys in the middle did very well. And then he came around for the opens and he actually got stood next to the same guys that beat him that he never got compared next to. And he absolutely dwarfed them. So sometimes, guys, I think it's just like bodybuilding's tough, man. It's subjective. The judges really only get like a very quick opportunity to say, oh, that person looked good, that person looked good, especially with the numbers that we had at that Queensland show. Let's see who that guy looks like. And then when they stand next to each other, they're either going to look great or maybe they don't, get the chance they want. So I don't know if you were in the crowd at that time with Taylor, but I was texting him and saying like, man, this category for Morgan, he's going to do better than he did against the guys that he did in first timers, which is,
Yeah. No, I was watching when Morgan was up there. When he come out for he kind of come to life a bit when he started posing. The more he posed, the more he worked on stage, the better and better he got. When he come out for his routine, he looked fucking ace. Yeah, it was just a weird one when they're moving him out to the side so much. I would have thought with that structure that would be quite unique. That would be an eye drawer on stage for the judges. But same thing as you said, if you get left towards the edge and you don't make that first appearance, fade off.
Yeah, and this is like, how could I have lost to this person in this category and then 10 minutes later won against this person? And it's not necessarily because you got better or they got worse. It's just for whatever reason, as unfortunate as it is, sometimes you just don't get the look. I really like the 30-second introduction posing around that the IFBB do for like the Olympia. And I did it also in the UK show that I did, where you get the opportunity to come out first. Do 30 seconds, show all your best poses, hide all your worst ones. And then they're like, oh, that's good, or that's bad, or that's whatever. And then they're looking for you to compare versus coming at a numerical order. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you get unlucky. And then, that's maybe what happened to Morgan in that particular instance. But shout out to Taylor and Morgan. He looked fucking awesome. And then last but not least was Big Matty. Took the overall, took the over 100s, transferred from the WBFF, first time back on stage in about 4 years. Blew the cobwebs out. He looked way fucking bigger on stage than I expected. I don't know about you.
The whole day, everyone was looking at Josh. The whole day, everyone was looking at Matt, and there was this constant like hush under floor, like backward talking. Everyone was like, "Oh, who's going to win? Is it Matt or Josh? Like, who's taking it? Who's taking it? They're both fucking monsters." When they stood next to each other, I was stood at the back, right at the top, looking down. When Matt walked out next to him, it was a completely different size game, completely different. Until they stood next to each other, it was once they stood next to each other, it was lights out.
Yeah. Again, another asterisk for that concept of bodybuilders that stand next to bodybuilders are different than bodybuilders that stand on their own. You see this all the time, man. Like some guys just look unreal until they stand next to somebody, and then it's like, oh. Not to suggest that, it's just that Matt gets highlighted when he comes in because he's like, what super has that size waist? I mean, fuck, actually, to be fair, what super? Josh is exactly the same. Both of them tiny ass motherfucking waists on dudes that are over 100, but there's just a look that you can never really ever talk to until you see it. So
no, completely. Matt's a bit of a stressor, isn't he?
No, never.
No, not Matty. No,
a lot of internal pressure, I think, from that.
Definitely, it was his first time competing.
Well, it's not even. It's like, to be fair, like we're not talking about athletes to the notoriety of Olympians. We're not, but you do have a guy there who came into Australia, went into like his first season of shows at WBFF. From what I understand, got his pro card straight away. I saw him at that show and thought, why the fuck are you at the WBFF? That guy's a bodybuilder. Then he went on from there to win universe titles. And then he's had a hiatus since. He's quite popular online. People know who he is. And, you know, ever since he'd won universe titles, everyone was saying to him, do IFBB, do IFBB. And then when he and I started working together, everyone was kind of like, Dean doesn't really coach a lot of WBFF guys. And they would hound me, is he going to do IFBB? And I'm like, I cannot say, you know. And he was like, I'm not sure, you know. So there's been there's literally been probably a good 2-year builder to Matty officially like sort of saying, I'm doing the IFBB. So there has been certainly a lot of internal pressure. And he's not somebody who fat loss comes easily to. It does initially, but in regards to getting that last bit off, which is, again, the feedback for him is just to get leaner through posterior chain. Certainly some presentation things to improve upon with that posterior chain posing as well, and not feeling so hyped up and stressed and cramped and all that kind of stuff in your poses. But fuck, man, like the dude has to grind, you know? So it doesn't come easy, and he knows that condition is necessary because you can't hide under smaller trunks in the IFBB.
What's that grind look like for people listening? How low did Matt's calories get for someone of that size? 2,200
calories for 5 to 10 day to 15 days at sometimes periods. But not only was it 2,200, there was also about 400K calorie cardio being done a day and about 15K steps.
Yeah. So when you see the level of an individual of that size and that muscularity, how hard and how far into the deficit they have to push, I think it puts some context for people when they start looking at the calories going close to like the 1,800 mark and they're going, oh, I shouldn't be eating this low food. Well, you weigh up the deficit calories, the expenditure on Matt, it was probably close. And he's big.
For reference, just so some people even this, my experience has been as a coach over the years that typically I don't typically have to take people beyond 15K steps and no cardio. And usually their calories will stay around about 25 times their body weight per kilogram. So if we just take a 100 kilo individual, usually they're like sitting around 2,500. There are obviously differences to this, but I'm talking just general averages, right? So 2,500 calories for a 100 kilo individual doing 15,000 steps and no additional cardio. Matt was doing like 22 times body weight, 21 times body weight, 15K steps, and an extra 40 minutes of cardio every fucking day. So he was 20% lower in calories and upwards of about 30% in output. It is what it is. So
it's what needs to get.
Yeah. So for him, we've got a slightly different approach coming out of that now, because I think like there was a lot of associated stress with the event. And I think that in itself will just ease off a little bit of the pressure here with regards to getting lean. But we're going to dig him even harder than that, but we're just not going to do it as long because the fatigue accumulation for him at that kind of level is just too high. And we've also pulled some of that output down. So we're not going to drive so much output fatigue. We're just going to rely a little bit more on the diet, and he's just going to suck it up hard for 5 days at a time and then get a bit of relief and then suck it up hard. And then come peak week, see what we can get done again. We pulled 4 kilos of fluid off him the night before the show with the protocols in play that we decided upon collaboratively, and then also obviously me steering the ship. But the look from Saturday night to Sunday morning was crazy, the amount of difference that we managed to achieve with that. So it was just a matter of holding the look. Now here's another interesting one for them too. He was very different even on show day to some of the guys. I'd be interested to know, you mentioned before with Ryan, 77 kilos, and you said it was difficult to keep him topped up on the day. What did food look like for Ryan on show day?
So it started off with the cream of rice meal in the morning. We then had rice cakes, jam, salt. The rice cakes didn't really sit too well with him on the day, so we reversed back to cereal and jam. And it was just a constant stream of topping up jam, cereal, where we needed to. There was probably two to three bigger feeds across the day with just the intermittent snack of carbs. As every time I was going, shit, you're flattening out again.
If you were to take a punt at how much carbs went in, would you be able to?
So on his trial peak, it was pretty close to 30 gram of carb per kilo of body weight. It was close to that on the trial peak week, about 450. And this time around, 2.
Okay. And then on show day, you reckon? When you say 3-2, is that over the course of the peak week entirely? Yeah. And then show up. Yeah. What about show day? How much do you reckon you got in? to keep him full?
I would say close to 400-500 grams of carbs just to top them up.
Yeah. So for a reference point here again, like, you know, we're talking about Ryan being under 80, needing about 400 grams carbs on that day as well. Matty, we had him on about 200-ish grams of carbs for show day. He pretty much just sipped on water to thirst. Well, that's actually not true. He got in about 2 liters initially and about 3 grams of sodium and whatnot. But to hold his fullness and just keep him like snug and tight and digestively in a happy spot, he was pretty much just doing like 2 or 3 rice cakes at a time with a little bit of jam every now and then, and just trying to relax and chill. And I think by the end of the day, he would have got in just about 300 grams of carb. And so, you know, a relatively similar amount, I think, for 30 kilos worth of additional mass. And this is the beautiful thing about coaching and about, you know, each person. There's a lot of individual variability with regards to people in peak week. So, you know, just again, for reference for some, so that people can, I suppose, appreciate the detail and whatnot. Like I had Matt pretty much doing like somewhat of like a 2-day washout period. So he's somebody that requires about 2 days worth of less food to sort of get him to where he needs to be from a fluid balance perspective. I had Jaden essentially just loading the night before very heavily, because he was grinding all the way in to try and get a bit more fat off. And then I've got Mike Dawn this week doing just a linear load. Like he's literally just topping carbs up every day, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then eventually there'll be a period where we go, you don't need more, or you do. You know, some guys are like a little bit more at the front, a little bit more in the middle, and a little bit more at the end. So it's a fun game, this, man. It's just half of it.
All right, with three. Well, Ryan's was completely different to Corey's this week, and the guy who I'm peaking for, Wes, into this show, the natty guy, Lee, his is completely different again in approach, like complete flip flops everywhere. They wouldn't even look somewhat comparable.
Yeah. What do you think what is the greatest variable that you think in a peak week? Like most people are getting carbohydrates, but like, would you say it's a major variance in the timing of carbohydrates and then how long they require to sort of like dry out and wash out? Or
I would say the glycogen retention of the individual is like the biggest benefactor, or the thing I see despite the biggest direction I take with any of my athletes is how fucking long does this cunt stay full for when I give him some food? Because that's going to decide the issue approach. Am I front loading, am I back loading, am I kind of linearly loading for the week and just playing it by ear? I think glycogen retention is probably like, yeah, that's the main thing for me.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'd probably agree with that. There's almost always a period somewhere within the week that I'm going to have fats in and fats up. But so that's pretty consistent with most people. It's just a matter of where it situates, but it's usually dependent on the carbohydrate load, not dependent on the timing. So, right. So that's that. But yeah, man, I still find it incredibly interesting that I can have a guy put 2 kilos on eating 500 grams of carbs, and then I can have a guy put nothing on eating 1,000 grams of carbs, you know?
Yep.
And I think we touched on this in the last peak week discussion we had, so I won't touch on it again. But that variability is the biggest one that I think people need to really get a grasp on. But not even so much get a grasp on it in understanding the capacity of how much carbohydrates you can consume, but divorcing yourself of the emotion that you need a lot of carbohydrates to get full. Because that's what people fuck up the most, I think, is that I have to load. I'm like, but if you look good on 300, that doesn't mean you get 600. You know?
Yeah. We always, whenever we do a peak week, we always forecast it of, you know, we're trying to get you as maximally full and as maximally dry as possible. I think reframing that to be, no, we're just trying to achieve the best look on your physique as possible. Wherever that lands is probably a more accurate phrase of the goal for the week, as opposed to trying to full you maximally and dry you out as hard as possible. Because one person's peeled and dry look doesn't always support the best visually. You know, some people prefer to look.
Well, Jaden's a good example of this, man. Jaden, we know for him, when he goes flat, he just looks shit. But we also know for him, just because he's a fucking asshole, that that when you get him full, he gets fluidy as a motherfucker. Like, he's an absolute prick. Jaden, fuck you. No. Man, so like his is like an interest. It's all about timing the amount that you can put in him before he goes sideways. Or, again, like you said, how long does it take for him to go flat again? So we've actually, like, Jaden's man, he's I've done every different peak week with him, but usually it's like one of two kind of strategies. One is that we load him like really fucking hard on a Wednesday, and then by Saturday he looks really good. But we can't do too much work between Wednesday and Saturday because he's hyper responsive to getting training based inflammation as well. So you need to like fill him, spill him, but then give him a lot of time. Or you need to deplete him till he goes to a pancake and then fill him like a motherfucker really late. So that then by the time that Saturday comes around, he looks great. But by Sunday, you're catching the fluid, bro. So like even this show, you know, like he got down about 101. We loaded him. And then on show day morning, we loaded on him about man, I can't remember the number. It was somewhere in the vicinity of about 1,300 grams of carbs. I got into him on Saturday, right? And he was 101. So like pretty much bang on like the load numbers that you would expect someone to get in. On Sunday morning, he was only up 1 or 2 kilos. You think, oh, all right. So like not too bad. On Monday morning, he was 106 to 108.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday today, he's still 108. And you look at him, you're like, man, you just look like someone just punched the fuck out of your entire body. like it's super interesting individual. But yeah, so it's understanding that when can you fill them? When do they spill? How long does it take for them to come back to normal? And picking your poison. So, and like you said, man, I'll reiterate that. I think that's a great line for you to Richard to touch on again. Is that a peak week is not about how full you can be. It's not about how lean you can be. It is what is the best look that you can achieve by combining all of these, considerations together.
100%.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one, even for my client Joe, who's doing the IFBB Elite show here in the UAE in a few days, because that poor dude today is on bird food. He's on 700 grams of food. He's eating, whey paste tonight while he's on the flight to keep his weight down. He's got 7 liters of fluid in by 4 p.m. to try and drive diuresis. And by the time he gets through to tomorrow, it'll be Thursday, he'll weigh in. I've never seen him go flat. I've had him on 1,700 calories for 10 days and he just doesn't go flat. So like the question most people then would be like, load the fuck out of him Thursday. But I don't think he's actually going to need it. So for him, it's not going to be about being maximally full. It's just going to be about, like putting some back in and then refining the look as time goes on. How's this an interesting one? I'd like your opinion on this. So in the IFBB Elite, if you're in the classic division, if you can't pull a vacuum, you get disqualified.
What? Well, there you go, IFBB. You've heard it here first. If you can't pull a vacuum, you're not classic.
Yeah.
Mad.
I didn't know it. It's crazy.
Real. What are the criteria or the exclusion criteria for being a vacuum or not being a vacuum, though? Because I can see some open bodybuilders pull a half vacuum that looks pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if we can answer it. Imagine that, like, now turn sideways. We need to measure the distance between your rib cage and your umbilical and determine that, the how far that goes in. Like,
that's weighing. They get on the scales, they're staying straight round for a tape measure, pull a vacuum.
Yeah, the ratio. But yeah, I didn't know that until he told me. He's like, are you going to load me hard on show day? I was like, I don't normally, like normally I try and keep GI as small as possible on show day for everyone. Like, there's no one likes a bloated belly on stage. And yeah, he's like, I have to pull a vacuum or I get disqualified. I was like, fuck.
What are the criteria? Must just be like Arnold. That's the look they're going for.
I suppose they have to do something different to the Pro League, because otherwise, like, what is the differentiation? Kind of like WBFF,
Yeah.
Be interesting to see who comes to the forefront of the WBFF style of competing in the next coming years, given all of the drama.
I put my money on WBFF Australia or that counterpart stepping up to the plate. I hope they do, because WBFF, I've always had a very strong opinion about WBFF and not really wanted to bother wasting much time in that space until, from in America's influence, because of the way I've seen the shows run, the bias in the federation was just not something I wanted to be involved with. Since seeing WBFF Australia, I must say my thoughts and opinions about WBFF massively changed from seeing how they run it in Australia compared to the rest of the world. They're very different.
Yeah, it was always a very difficult category of athletes to prep, because I'd always be like, we have no criteria for what you're supposed to look like. So do I get you peeled, or like what is it? And then the solution would be, oh, well, here is the current best, be that person. But then that person was only the best in that country, because this person in that country is very different. So I always have this conversation with the client, like, would you rather come in peeled and lose, or come in a little bit off and be told to be leaner and lose. And they're like, I'd rather just be peeled and lose. Like, because at least I've ticked that box, you know, like, and like I know like Jazz, Joe Jeffrey's wife, really struggled with the concept of like not coming in as peeled as IFBB Bikini for her WBFF debut. And because she's kind of like I'm not dieting into this. This is a huge mindfuck to come in what you classify to be under your best, and yet it was heavily rewarded. She got a pro card. Like fucking props to them for nailing the criteria that doesn't exist, but kind of does. You know, like it's super tough. But mate, any other final comments on the Australian comps? Thoughts?
Just the fact that W give us a bit more leeway on the percentage of input we have as a coach. 40% is not enough.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Jesus.
Is that 50? At least 50% of the say. No, man. Very impressed with the show so far. I think it's only going to keep being more of the same. Good venues, really good quality athletes. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it and how Nationals runs as well. I'm keen to see Nationals on the day. Yeah.
Will you only make it to the men's one on the Saturday Nationals, you think?
Yeah, I'll probably only be in the men's.
Yeah, well, and if anyone's there, obviously, you know, pull George aside, give him a tickle. I think I said to you that last time, but he's always keen for a chat. I don't know. Do you want to throw any requests out there, George, for somebody to bring you something? Should they feel the need to surprise you with a gift?
Had a sausage sizzle, sizzle, whatever you call it.
Yeah, no, sausage sizzle. The Sizzler is an actual eatery, but
well, no, sausage sizzle. Then I had my first one: bread and a sausage. Simple, easy, effective.
A square bread with a long sausage.
Yeah. Square bread with a long sausage.
Did you have the sausage diagonally or down the middle?
Right. So, first thing I did was straight in the middle because I'm from the UK.
No.
And I looked around the table and saw that there was a way to do things that I was not doing. I was just Neanderthaling it. Like, put it diagonally and you fold it into a little taco kind of pinch.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a bao bun. It's that is, isn't it? I've never. You know what? I've never even considered putting it that way because it's all I know.
Well, yeah, because I just bit both ends of the sausage. It was just a sausage sandwich, like. Yeah,
but then you have too much bread to the sausage. You see, this is the beauty of the diagonals. The diagonal thing is every time you bite, you get a little bit of bread, a little bit of sausage, and then you have a decision to make. Do you just continue from tip to tip, or do you eat the ends with a little bit of bread and finish with more bread? So you get to choose your bread to sausage ratio.
I like the thought process that goes into this because I was leaving the little point at the end and then having the bread just to finish off the last mouthful.
Yep. There's a for anyone that likes a bit of comedy, if they look up on YouTube, Ivan Aristegueta, he's a Valencian, and then type in Bunnings. He does the most hilarious bit on the Australian sausage sizzle at Bunnings, which is like a warehouse of like tradesmen's tools and stuff. George, they do sausage sizzles there all the time to fundraise, and mate, it is just too good. Did you have barbecue sauce or tomato sauce or ketchup on that sausage sizzle?
I swapped. One on one, one on the other.
With or without caramelized onions?
Caramelized onions in both.
Good boy. Good boy.
And put a bit of coleslaw in one of them.
Ooh,
very good chef.
That's a very bougie sausage sizzle, mate.
Mate, I'm just a man. I just like to cram things into a sandwich and see what I can get.
Was this Shane's thing for you? Is that you gotta have a sausage sizzle?
I mentioned it, I think, the night before, and then I literally come out from work and there was a load of sausage on the side. I was like, oh, sweet.
That's so good. On the old barbecue?
I don't know, actually. I was come back in from training, they were just cooked and done, ready to roll.
Amazing.
It's a 5-star review on TripAdvisor. Shane does.
Props to Shane Girdlestone, mate. You're a legend. I'm so glad you had a sausage sizzle. I wonder what else. Is there anything else that someone could surprise you with?
I mean, I had my first Tim Tam, and
it's better than a penguin, right?
It's way better than a penguin because it's got like a little salty to it.
Did you have an original?
I had an original and a white chocolate. Both were top tier. Very good biscuits.
I would highly recommend that you try the caramel one. That's definitely a good shout too. And then if you're more of a cream or biscuit man, depending on your preferences, there's actually a double Tim Tam where you get double the cream to the same amount of biscuit. I can't even remember what it's called.
Stuffed Oreo all the way. So yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah, you got to get the double then, and then I can't remember what it's called. Someone's gonna shout me out for that. If Liz has not explained the Tim Tam Slam to you, then you need to get on board that as well, which is basically, as an Englishman who should be into drinking tea, you take the Tim Tam, you eat off opposing corners, right? And then you dip the corner that's bitten off into the tea and you suck. And it's called a Tim Tam Slam. And the hot tea goes through the cream. Do you like?
Bang in. That sounds like a smart move.
Yeah, man, that's good. Mate, what's the time there for you?
Quarter past midnight.
Is it?
It is, yeah.
Mate, all right. Let's wrap this up with some fun stuff. Less shit tip.
What is that? Okay. Competitors on show day, your worst enemy is going to be stress, which means that it could be anything from an emotional stress, physical stress, psychological stress. The best thing you can do, plonk your little ass down on the floor with your legs slightly elevated and just sit back and relax. The hard work is done. Do as you're told. Don't ask. Don't come out with 9,000,001 ideas of who's doing what. He's doing this. I should be doing this. Just focus on what you're doing, what your coach tells you to do, and keep yourself relaxed. Don't run around. Don't try and do too much or get caught up in the excitement.
Yep,
that'd be my
beautiful. I would second that tip. It is incredibly useful. The more you can do that, and I think it actually aligns with the discussion we had before about the difference of someone being compared to somebody else. Just remember, somebody standing under lights backstage isn't what they look like when they stand under lights on stage. Because I've seen some dudes backstage where I thought, holy fucking shit, I've got zero chance, and they've come third or fourth. So, the backstage look is not the onstage look. My be less shit tip would be for people that don't have a coach and are a little bit uncertain when they should get ready for a pump up or when to time food, and they don't really know how the show's going from a timing perspective. The simplest thing you can do is basically take one or two categories that are on multiple categories before you, count how many people that are in it, and then count the total time from when they start to when they finish, and then give it an average time per person. So you might have 10 people on stage and it takes 10 minutes. So you know that if the next group is 15, it takes 15 minutes. And then all you need to know is how many people are in the category prior to you and then the one prior to that. If it's X amount of minutes and that's when you want to start, then you just go, when under 90 start is when I start. Don't worry about all the rest of it. That's just the simplest way to subtract your timings and you're good to go. Yeah. Something worth sharing, George. I'm going to take this one today because you are the man that I'm going to share. And that is that anyone that is still going through peak weeks right now who doesn't have a coach or is coaching themselves and is uncertain how to go about their peak week, maybe wants to refine it, maybe wants somebody to take over it and give them some, a stress-free run into peak week, as we've just spoken about. George does do one-off peak weeks. That includes a consultation, then the plan, and some follow-up work. So if that is something that interests you or you would like, all you have to do is just go through our quick links that's on our Instagram page and through to the consultation, book in a consult with George, and then he'll tell you all about that. That is my something worth sharing. And last but not least, we couldn't have a podcast without at least some of Liz's influence. She left us just as we started conversing today, George, and she's provided us with the Would You Rather. She specifically asked if you have a brother and a mother. Well, she knows you have a mother, but a mother that is alive. So the question is as follows. Would you rather, George, passionately kiss your brother for 60 seconds straight, including butt grabbing, or passionately kiss your mum, including butt grabbing?
Oh,
Silence.
fuck. I'm going to have to go with the brother because the mum's just too weird.
Yeah.
We could get past that. A couple of beers, one night around the fire. We just...
couple of Tim Tam slams.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
It'd be a real sausage sizzle then, wouldn't it?
You've ruined that. You've ruined it for a meal for me now.
Oh, fuck. Man, I'm not answering that. I'm glad I was the one that got the chance to ask you because, I mean, I'd have to go with the same. And then the follow-up for me would be which brother, and that one I'm definitely not going to answer. Either way, I'd manhandle both of the little bitches. No. Mate, any passing words from my Australian friend that is now you, George?
No.
Fucking oath, yeah. On that note, everyone,
Yeah, I'm slowly getting the Aussie lingo. I'm slowly getting it.
Mate, it's been a pleasure as always. For those that are listening at home or watching on YouTube, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Obviously, we appreciate a share, a like, a comment, whenever you can. And if anybody needs us, you know where to find us, all on our socials. So peace out. All the best of the rest of the shows, George. Enjoy them.
Cheers, man. Looking forward to it.